Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started in just a minute. All right. Welcome, everyone. Today's topic is going to be Ivy League 101, what it takes to be able to get in. Super excited to be able to share this information just because a lot of folks are wondering what does it take in order to get into the topmost school. So we'll cover in just a bit. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about preparing for academic rigor, what the class progressions look like. We'll look at example schedules that we've been able to successfully get students into Ivy Leagues, and what is it that you can do about your class choices. Also, focusing on your activities to show your dedication. One last bullet point that I forgot to also add onto here is the supplemental applications as well. And what is it that you can highlight specifically just for that university when you're prompted for that. Quick housekeeping here. If you don't mind, just share your high school graduation year in the chat. Curious to know who's in the room with us today. And also throughout this entire time, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Lastly, replays and notes will always be available within 48 hours, so please be patient with us. I know a lot of folks are always asking for us to be able to follow up, but our team will get back to you, I swear. Okay, by way of background for myself, I used to work formally at UC Berkeley college admissions process as an outreach coordinator and instructor. I taught a class on how to get into graduate school, went to different schools and taught about college admissions process overall. Just so you know, in terms of what we teach, in terms of the Ivy League admissions, the UC admissions, or whatever admissions it is all practically the same. Generally speaking, we've talked with a lot of different college admissions officers, and the way that we kind of go through the admissions process, it is a very similar kind of process. Also, fun fact for myself, I used to be a full ride UC Berkeley scholar, and I was able to pay for undergrad and graduate school without taking out any loans. And lastly, in terms of my background, I used to work in K through 12 education policy, ed tech, and now I'm an admissions advisor. So that being said, you're in good hands right now, and let's get into the content of it. So first off, before we kind of go into about how does Ivy League admissions works, I just want to be able to share a few success stories of our students who did get in, just so that folks know that what we're talking about is true. Okay. If you haven't seen it already, go to our egelloC Success Stories website. That's where you can see some interviews of our students who did get into Harvard and other Ivy League schools as well. So if you haven't checked it out yet, do take a look at Cindy and Robin's highlight here. They're both students who got into Harvard. And so it was super exciting last year when we were able to interview them. Also, here's some other kind of admissions that we've seen previously as well for Ivy Leagues or Ivy League Pluses. And when we say Ivy League Pluses, it's not just the Ivy Leagues that we're trying to focus on. We're trying to focus on the most top competitive schools. In this case here, that also meant for this particular school of the California Institute of Technology. Also right here within Rice as well. We've seen admissions into Emory, also into Stanford and Columbia, Cornell, Berkeley, and even just a few days ago, we saw a lot of admissions as well. And so we're expecting to see Ivy League admissions successes even more within the next few weeks. Usually it comes out late March and also early April. So within the next few days, we're super excited to be able to share some admission stories that we were able to hear. And we hope that from this presentation, again, all this information is free. And also if you're a part of our coaching communities, you're in good hands that you're going to be able to learn from the best in terms of what does it take in order to get into these schools. So let's dig into it. So what is it that they want to know? Okay. Remember that the whole point about college admissions process is that you want to connect the dots. You want to backwards map what exactly are they looking for and to see how is it that you can fit that profile. There isn't like a necessarily like a cookie cutter profile necessarily that the Ivy League admissions are really looking for. But what we do want to understand is at least these general kind of broad characteristics of showing strong academic rigor, meaning that can you actually handle the amount of college rigor that's expected at a university. We just want to make sure that you can graduate on time. Second, do you have a passion and commitment towards service or some type of particular need or mission that you want to accomplish? And lastly, the alignment with the college values, because if you didn't know, for a lot of these Ivy League schools, they require like a separate application saying like, why Harvard? Why Yale? Why this particular school? Or why this particular major? And so the most important thing about there is really being able to demonstrate that you do have a cultural fit with that. And so we'll talk about how to approach those applications and how to structure application and what are some things that you could potentially highlight or identify. If you're a junior already, your class of 2026, you're going to be working on this really soon. And don't worry, we'll help you every single step of the way. And of course, there's a lot more to it, but these are the kind of the main things that we're going to be focusing on just for today, just because they are the most important things. Okay. So let's start with the first one, which is the academic rigor. So when it comes to academic rigor, really, we just want to understand, can you handle the difficult courses? Because it's not just about being able to get in, but can you actually graduate on time? The reason why rigor is so important is because we don't want to set you up for failure. We want you to set you up for success. And the courses at an Ivy League school are definitely more difficult in a sense and compared to like state colleges. And so the way that we discover that is through like courses such as the honors courses, advanced placements, AP scores, IB courses, and also dual enrollment as well. And remember that the way that you want to think about it is uh, how can you diversify your academic rigor? You don't want just one of these, you want as much as possible. The reason for that is because imagine if you're taking the same amount of classes as everyone else at your school. And remember, you're being compared against two groups of people, your high school and your geographical location. And if everyone at your school were to apply to the same school, the same pathway as you, then you're going to look like the same if you have the same exact courses. And so the way to think about it is, how do you diversify your academic rigor? How do you show that you're taking different types of academically rigorous courses so that way you can be able to stand out? And so that's why we recommend dual enrollment, which is the ability to take community college courses while in your high school. That is the one major strategy that we always talk about, because if your other peers are not taking dual enrollment, then that just makes it even easier and better to be able to stand out. So definitely that's something that you might want to consider, which is how do you create a schedule that uses all these different types of rigor in there. And so at least for the Ivy Leagues, right? You want to try to take as many honors, AP, and IBs possible that's eligible at your school. The way that we see in admissions is that we get to see what is the average number of AP courses, IB courses, honor courses that students enter in with, meaning that at the point of junior year or senior year, what is the typical number of these courses that people are finishing at? Because you're being compared against your peers, right? The goal is to be able to be ahead of the curve, meaning that if you know that there's an average of 10 AP courses that are required to get into, or 10 AP courses that are typical for students to finish by the time it hits senior year, then you want to get above 10. You want to get 11 or 12 then in that case, right? And so a lot of families always ask us, how many AP courses do I need? The question isn't about how many AP courses you need. The question is, what is the typical average of AP courses are students taking at your school? So taking the consideration of that and then just one up that, and that's pretty much when you know that you're in a good place. Also, last thing is don't be restricted by what your school allows. You can always go further, as in like the dual enrollment pathway, which we'll talk about in more detail. But essentially, the kind of strategy or the loophole here is to be able to find outside courses just through, like, for example, UC Scout, BYU, online courses that you can get like credits for, and also with dual enrollment. And dual enrollment is especially important because the fact that it is college credit, and that what you're showing with college credit is that you can handle college level courses. So let's talk about an example of what a typical course schedule might look like. And let's say this is a regular student, okay? Typically, students might start off with geometry at ninth grade. They have English 9, biology, PE, and so forth. And this is like what you see at a typical traditional high school that has like semesterly courses. Then they progress through looking at the top row only, right? They just go through the typical math route. We're assuming that they don't take any summer school courses, and they finish with calculus AB by the end of 12th grade. Same for English courses too. You see that there's just a slow progression, English 9 all the way to English 12. Also with the same for the typical types of sciences, they might go bio, chem, and then maybe AP bio or AP chem or physics. And then with world history and US history and government, they kind of follow that typical progression. So at this end of the day, you're looking at maybe approximately 4 or 5 like AP courses that the student might be taking. Okay. So this is what we see with a regular student. And the thing is, remember that for Ivy Leagues, it's not about being regular. It's about being able to like step up and to be able to stand out, right? And so what is it that it could look like instead? What's the alternative? Okay. So one of the things that we always talk about in our program is how do you optimize based off your pathway? Remember, there's three pathways that we could talk about, right? So the first pathway is computer science and engineering. Second pathway is STEM and business, and third is everything else. So if you're in the engineering or computer science field, then you're belonging to the first pathway. Anything like kind of technical related, STEM and business in the middle. And I know STEM, the E stands for engineering, but technically we're just kind of taking that out and putting it into the first pathway because engineering and computer science is much more rigorous. So let's talk about the first track. What does it look like for computer science and engineering field that it could look like? So this is kind of the list here where we see at the very beginning of a ninth grade, instead of geometry, they're taking algebra 2 already. And starting 10th grade, they're already taking on AP or honors pre-calc. Of course, not many schools or not every single school offers honors or AP pre-calc, but again, it's whatever's the highest that's available at your school is really what you want to go for. And then in 11th and 12th grade, you might notice that they don't really have math per se. And that's because they take in dual enrollment. And we'll talk about what that outside schedule looks like. This is just particularly the schedule only within the school. Something you'll notice is that within the first ninth grade, they have 2 honors courses, which is the only available honors courses that they might have at their school. It's possible that the school doesn't allow AP courses, and that's okay. Again, because you're being compared against the average of the school, you want to think about, okay, what is the highest number of honors or AP courses do they allow to take at ninth grade? If you notice there's even at least one student that has an AP course, then okay, then you want to get to that one AP course then. And so a lot of families ask me this question all the time, especially if you're in middle school, like which high school should I go take my kid to? And it depends on a variety of factors, but something to consider is that depending on your high school, that determines what your strategy is. So I typically like the schools where they have only they have strict policies about the number of AP courses allowed per grade, because that makes it easier to strategize. So for example, if they only allow 2 AP courses in 10th grade, then you just know that, okay, just get to 3 or get to 2 AP courses plus like dual enrollment or something of that sort. So take that in consideration, right? About like, again, what's the maximum, what's the average, and that will give you a better sense of what courses to take. For 10th grade, you'll see that they have 3 AP courses, AP World History, AP Pre-Calc, and also AP CSP. And that is, the most allowed AP courses the student was able to take. And also they're in honors in every single honors course that they can potentially take here. So 2 honors courses and 3 AP courses. The third year of high school, they have almost all AP courses except this foreign language. And is 3 years of foreign language required or not? No, it's not. Okay. Yes, it shows great that you have consistency of being able to do like 3 years or 4 years of foreign language, but it's not required. And like, for example, another alternative that people can take instead is like if they're in a magnet course where they have to take like engineering or computer science, maybe they might have a computer science or engineering track at their school. It's possible that you might not be able to fit in that foreign language. So just know that it won't necessarily count against you just because you don't have that third year of language. Is it recommended? Of course it is. But you can always explain it in the application that you weren't able to take it because of the lack of availability in your schedule. And they'll be able to see that based off your transcript. And so in this case right here, we have 5 AP courses that's available within the 11th grade. And so that is the maximum that's taken there as well. And then in 12th grade, you'll see that you continue to be more AP courses, and this student maximized like their entire like AP schedule, especially for physics and math. So those are the 2 main things that we look at, especially for the computer science and engineering pathway. If you're studying this field, right, the physics, the math courses, and anything engineering or computer science related is really what's going to be highly recommended. But something that you don't see here, right? This is just the schedule only for within high school. If you were to take an outside look of what else did they do, they actually took math in dual enrollment as well. So instead of taking math in high school, they took Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, linear algebra, and differential equations, discrete math in community college. And these are levels of math that is not available at the high school. Why is this beneficial? Well, think about it this way, right? If you're already taking college level math and you're able to have that in your transcript, you're applying to college and the college wants to know, can you actually handle the amount of rigor at our university? If they see that you completed college credits already, then it's like, okay, great, amazing. That means that I won't have any fear that you won't drop out in the future. And so by taking this higher level of math, this also demonstrates that you're being taking initiative in terms of your knowledge. And so the major thing that we want to understand from the mission side is what is it that what kind of are you taking advantage of the academic opportunities in your area? And this is like one of those examples. Also with sciences, something that this student also took was additional classes on UC Scout. And this was AP Chemistry and AP Physics C. If you are not in California, it's totally fine to take UC Scout as well. UC Scout isn't just for people who are going to UCs, but it's also for anyone that's applying to college in general. And UC Scout is a great place to be able to take online science courses. We typically recommend taking the science courses through like UC Scout or BYU anyways, just because it's easier for students to pass. If you take the community college course of science, it's a lot more difficult. So we don't recommend taking like the hard sciences in the community college. We only recommend really math to take and also general education courses. Third thing is additional coursework as well. They might have taken some few computer science courses in addition to the ones at school to really demonstrate their interest in going to computer science. So in total, this student took 6 additional math classes, 2 additional science courses, and 3 additional computer science courses. Does that sound like a lot? Yes, it totally does. Okay. But also remember that what's great about the community college with dual enrollment is that they're only in 1 semesters each, meaning that Calc 1 is equivalent to 1 full year of calculus, AP Calculus AB. And you have to take an AP test at the end of the year and get a 4 or 5. But at least when it comes to math here, you just take it for 1 semester and you're good. So meaning that you actually finish it in half the time. And also what's great is like even for UC Scout, even students can finish that within months, right? 2 to 3 months. You don't necessarily need to take a full year just to be able to finish an AP course. So again, the goal for us is to work smarter, not harder. So these are some ways to be able to kind of expedite your academic rigor and to show that you're taking that initiative. All right. So let's go to the next part, which is the STEM and business track. So if you're interested in going pre-med, especially, this is the thing that you should be focusing on or paying attention to. And also, if you're in business, this is also the same way. Why are they on the same track? Well, because the types of courses, the types of rigor is kind of in the same here. So this is what a typical course progression might look like in this case. Okay, so from 9th grade, we see Algebra 2, and then they end up actually taking the rest of their math courses within their high school setting. And so this is what we saw one of our students be able to do is that they actually went from pre-calc to calculus BC and then finish off with AP stats. At least in terms of the STEM and business track, the math is not as crazy significant in comparison to the CS and engineering pathway. And so what that means is that you don't have to really push yourself to go to linear algebra or multivariable calculus or those things, just because that's really more expected for like the people who are going more into the engineering or computer science fields. And here in English, they progressed in the honors courses, went through all the AP, the typical AP English courses from AP Lang, AP Lit, and same for sciences as well, where they take bio and chem honors and then took the AP Chem and AP Bio. If you see any AP Chem or AP Bio at your school and you're in the STEM and business track, that's what you really want to take, okay? Physics, not as important. I wouldn't really worry too much about physics here because physics is more related to the ones who are going down the engineering path. And then lastly, there's typically like the magnet business pathways or like the pre-med pathway. Those are good courses to take as well. And especially if they offer like physiology or other kinds of courses that are related to your field of interest, then those are the ones that you really want to focus on as well. But generally speaking, the student took all the AP courses that was available as much as possible and really demonstrated that. But let's also look at what did they do outside of the high school itself. So the students started taking Calc 3 or linear algebra starting later on after as well. And so this was something that they actually doubled up during like their senior year or like the summer right before their senior year. As I mentioned, right, again, not as a huge focus, like they definitely did the best that they can to their ability to be able to take as much math as possible. But again, like in terms of like comparability, like those that go down the STEM and business pathway, the Calc 3 and linear algebra is kind of like a cherry on top here. Is it required? Like not necessarily. And is it something that they is it required? No, not at all. But then at the same time, it's something that shows that you are taking initiative and that, again, if you want to stand out, this is one of the ways that they stand out. And then the science courses, this particular student took a additional class on UC Scout. they put AP Physics, and that was a fine course to take. It just showed that they had differentiation in their schedule. Meaning, again, it's really about how you diversify your academic rigor, how you stand out against your peers, and the way to stand against your peers is take the courses that they haven't taken before. Some additional community college work that this student particularly took, they also took an intro to business and also financial accounting class. Something that you would just want to double check is whether the class is transferable. So just making sure that you don't want to just take any business course. You don't want to just take any like medical course. You want to make sure that it actually fulfill a general education course. And so the student was able to take a closer look at that to see if it was transferable. In California, there are websites to be able to see like assist.org, which is a website to see what courses fulfill the general education requirements. For other states, they might have their own kind of thing. It's based on the community college system. They usually have their own kind of website to see what's transferable. And so for this particular student, they got 2 additional math courses, 1 additional science courses, and 3 additional CS courses here. Okay. Uh, and sorry, that might have been a typo. That means like just community college courses, not computer science. So just 3 additional community college courses. All right. So that's academics. Okay. So now that y'all know, in terms of what was some ways to be able to stand out through the academics, the next part is the activities. And so first, let's understand like what the activities are really meant to do. They're really made to help the admissions officers really know that are you taking initiative to really learn more about your interests, right? The thing about these activities is that you don't need to wait until college to really understand what is it that you want to study. Like learning doesn't start when you get to college. Learning about your particular interests, your majors start as early as now. And the goal isn't for you to be like the best of the best, as in like curing cancer or doing anything of that sort. The goal is just to show that you're taking initiative and you have a commitment to learn, right? And so demonstrating passion and commitment is like one of those things where they just want to know how serious are you about learning this particular field? How do you know that you really want to study this? Development of soft skills, being able to think about like leadership experiences. It's not just about doing really well in the academics, but it's really about how do you show that you're well-rounded. That also means like contributing to your community as well. Evidence of time management, like because when you're in college, you're not going to be just doing academics only. You're going to get involved on campus. They want people who will contribute towards their culture. And the way to be able to show they will contribute towards culture is somebody who does more than just academics. If you have someone who has perfect grades, 5.0, like all A's, 100% everything, that is not necessarily the way to be able to stand out. Because the thing is, like, they want somebody who is engaged on their campus. And so the time management part is to be able to see, like, do you have a balance of different things all at once? Unique perspectives and experiences, what is something that is new that you can be able to bring? What's a fresh perspective that you can provide? Personal growth and resilience. Are you learning about yourself, not just about the academics itself, but can you show a lot of self-awareness? And lastly, alignment with college values, which we'll dig into a bit more specifically when it comes to the supplemental applications. And so let's explore some examples of some of our students' personal projects that was able to get them into the Ivy Leagues, okay? So we have student 1 here who was a computer science student. And so they created a computer science club revolving around helping students learn how to code. For themselves, they were in a lower socioeconomic status bubble, and they lower status, meaning like they were qualifying for free reduced lunch. And then they wanted to share that information to others because of the fact that these courses, the computer science classes, was not available at the school. Little do some people know is that AP computer science is not something that's widely available in every single neighborhood or every single high school. And so this student wanted to create that particular club because there wasn't enough education at the particular school. And so they made that available for the rest of the students at the school as well. And so they also worked with this team, like as in trying to create a project out of it as well, where they developed an app to help solve the problem of food waste in the community. So being able to connect like what are some like food challenges that like what are some like leftover food, like for example there is sometimes food that's discarded at the grocery stores, and being able to try to connect like that particular waste to people who could purchase the product itself. Now in this case, right, it wasn't as if like it was a what do you call it? Like a huge impact per se. I would say that when it comes to these personal projects, yes, that the impact is really important, but it's not as if it's expected that you have to build a perfect app, that you have to build something revolutionary or anything of that sort. I mean, because again, you're like these students are just still high school students too. So they're so just minimize your expectations in terms of like, yes, when they developed a food to solve the problem of food waste in the community, I can't really assert whether if it like really did create a major difference per se. But the fact is that they found an issue, they tried to solve for it, and they learned something from that experience. So that's the impact. The impact is not just about the community, but the impact was the learning that they got from the experience itself. And the learning was not just from that student who did run that club, but it was also everyone that was involved there. The fourth thing, student leadership, and eventually this went to competitions with this group. And so really the student was involved and they were also able to participate in like hackathons and kind of other competitions to be able to showcase what is it that they've developed. And so in the first year, they maybe only had like 5 students, but they showed the growth of like how that club expanded to like 50 kids and then having 4 teams and 10 volunteers. So what this is showing for the student, right, is that there was a particular need, right? The need was the fact that there wasn't enough learning about coding. And secondly, there was an issue in the community, which was about food waste. And then they were able to not just solve the issue themselves, but they were able to bring their community with them, or they were able to bring people together and create like a larger impact. The thing about these personal projects that a lot of people tend to forget, it's not just about doing something that you personally like yourself, but it's about how do you share that with others? How do you share that knowledge and that interest with other people around you? So that way it demonstrates the kind of cultural impact that you might have on their school. So going to why this mattered, they focus on creating an impact in their community. As I mentioned, it's not about the glory, it's about raising the confidence of her students. And while we're able to see the growth in number of students, it's more than just that, but the fact that the student took multiple roles to develop her organization. It's not just being able to like, code a particular app, but it's about also being that leader and being able to bring people along. And this was demonstrating the values of community building and helping underprivileged students. So anyway, this was a really great personal project because it was something that they've showed interest about, and it was combining a combination of their community service while also their interest in what they wanted to study and trying to figure out how can you integrate the two together. And the student actually ended up going to Stanford. So that was one of the exciting things about what helped that student. And this is maybe hopefully an idea for students who are watching this call about what is it that you can do. If you're thinking about your personal project, again, think about what is the problem that you see, why do you care about it so much, and then to be able to see how you can address that impact with a group of other people as well. Okay, next part is is a linguistics student. So this student focused on immigrant populations where English was not the first language. She interviewed, transcribed, mapped various speech patterns and dialects to try to find a reason why English language adaptation was so difficult for other language speakers. And so with her findings, she began an ESL program for younger and adult learners to help them get a better grasp of the English language. And so started off with just 1 student and then now has like about 35 students in the club with 7 volunteers and also a succession plan for the future. What this showed that was really amazing is that this was self-research motivated, right? Like she went out and proactively tried to learn more directly from people that she wanted to support. And I think this shows an amazing thing about like empathy and being able to learn from the people who are feeling the challenge. And so for her to be able to do that, she's not just creating a solution out of nowhere, right? She is actually trying to understand, diagnose the issue. It's not about the solution that's the most important part. It's about the problem identification, the problem awareness. What is it the problem that you're trying to solve for? So a lot of people spend like, they immediately jump to conclusions like, oh, I can't wait to build this thing, this amazing project. But in reality, you got to like slow down and take a step back. Like, what are you truly trying to solve? And how do you know that based off what you've experienced so far? And in most cases, a lot of students have an idea of like a solution that they want to do to like support underprivileged or like certain communities. But the reality is that you don't want to show that you have like a savior complex. That's also something that you want to be careful about, because just because you have this great idea doesn't mean that you're the only one that thought about it. And so you want to be able to show that you are really methodological in the ways that you approached it, and that you weren't just trying to provide a solution to the community, but instead you were like trying to develop a solution with them. And so another highlight here too was the succession plan. It's being able to show that the impact will still last even after you're gone. There's a example that we always tell our students, which is imagine if you try to do a personal project about doing like a beach cleanup. The thing is, you can organize a lot of events where they're cleaning up the beaches together, and you might have solved the problem just for that day, but the trash is still going to come. The trash is still going to be there the next day when people litter. And so the goal is to think about how do you create more of that long-lasting systemic impact to be able to make sure that the problem doesn't exist anymore. And so that's another way to show maturity in terms of your personal project. And and why it mattered, and excuse me for the typo here, it's meant to say student number two. Student identified a problem in his immigrant dominant community, began research to find out why, and then implemented solutions to find ways for people to learn. As I mentioned, being able to understand the problem first, provided a service that many also do, but do in a particular way that tailored to their target audience. The growth and development of curriculum and student base, and also the college they're going to is really big on research and development in this case. So that being said, right, this really shows that connection to that particular university in terms of what they hope to learn and how they can be a cultural, like be in a cultural alignment with that. And so for this particular student, they actually ended up going to UPenn, which we were very ecstatic to be able to find out. And so again, this was just one of the many examples of the passion projects or personal projects that they highlighted. So again, takeaways from here, right? For your personal projects, think about what's the issue that you really care about. Think about how do you know that's an issue? Have you talked to the people that you're trying to impact? And also, what's the particular skill sets that you want to practice or develop in this process? Because the whole point about going to college is that you're trying to grow your level of education for a particular reason. And so you have to somehow see that there's a gap in your knowledge, right? That this is the next thing I want to learn. I want to learn this next thing because of the fact that I tried it and I found out that I really love it and I want to do better at it. And so just being able to show your thought process and connecting the dots for the admission readers about what exactly is it that you hope to gain from this education. And that's through the activities. All right. Next, let's go into the supplemental applications. So supplemental applications are when you apply to an Ivy League or maybe some other private school, and sometimes they'll ask you to submit an additional essay just for either that school or that major. And so the typical things that you might see is like, why Harvard? Why engineering? Why whatever? Those are like the typical kind of questions that you might get for supplemental apps. So to better understand what they're looking for is they want to know, do you have an alignment with the school's values, culture, and the academic programs? And also, have you done your own due diligence and research about why is it that you think it's a good fit? That's beyond prestige or rankings, okay? What I mean by that is that uh, you shouldn't just be applying to any school. I mean, just because, yes, it's Ivy League, that sounds great. But really, what about the particular school does it offer that it can give you a particular education? So if a school emphasizes interdisciplinary learning, the essay should reflect a student's ability to connect different fields of study. That's an example of that, right? So what is the specialty of the school? What did you learn about the school or about the major or the department at that school that has really piqued your interest, right? And hopefully it's not just the name, which in most cases, a lot of students, it is about the name. But look in a little bit deeper than that. These are the example of the prompts that I mentioned. So if you notice, they're all kind of very similar to this, where it's just like, what brought your interest to this particular university? Sometimes they use a quote, and generally they're just saying, why us? Like, why our school versus another school, right? The essay that I can use for Harvard should not be easily applied to Princeton or Yale, okay? Like you have to be able to differentiate them amongst them. So how to start writing about it? First, understand the prompt's purpose, right? Again, you want to understand what are they looking for out of an applicant? What do they want in their school? And what are the kind of cultural values that they have presented themselves on their website or through like student interviews that you've noticed that they have about themselves? Research the school's unique offerings. So this is where you kind of do your online research. Just go through the websites, watch their YouTube videos, Third, use personal stories and specific examples to be able to relate to those and relate about how you can fit in within that context. And then a kind of suggested structure here is you start off with a hook or opening, start with an interesting personal story or statement about yourself and emphasis on yourself. Okay. You don't want to start about a hook or opening about the school, right? Because you're writing to the school. You don't necessarily need to wow them about what you know about them. It's about you want them to get interested in you. So start off with that. Talk about yourself and everything. And that's why we always recommend to students always write every single sentence with I, me, or myself, because every single sentence needs to be about yourself. Second, development, explain your perspective or experience or values. Talk about how is it that you've grown or developed, and then from there you connect it to the school and how your future relates to this university. And at the end, think about the conclusion of what's the forward-looking statement or reflection in terms of what you hope to get out of the school in the future. Like what does it look like for you to be able to get this education, and what would that mean to you as a student? So we're going to go into specific, like, there are two different types of supplemental apps that we'll cover, at least for today. One is the school specific ones and then the major specific ones. For the school specific one, they just want to understand like uh why like this school is so good for you, right? Or why this school is such a good fit for you. But you have to be careful because sometimes like you don't want to be like too generic compared to your other students. And sometimes you might brag too much about the school that it focuses less on yourself. And so just to always keep a good balance of connect to the school, but always connect whatever the school is to yourself and what you can offer to that uh, what you can offer to them, or what's the connection, that the similarities that you share. And so a way to go about it is you want to find some specific programs that is related to your interests, your majors, find the student organizations that might reflect your passions, tell them about how different aspects of the college will blend with your interests, passions, or convictions. And then also just know that as a pro tip is that if you found something on the first page, it's more likely that all these other students have done the same as well. So click more into it. Like you gotta look more than what's on the surface level on the first page of like the school, but you want to be able to find like what is something that you can show that you have a deep understanding and curiosity of the school itself. And so things to not talk about, to be careful about, is the location. Okay. Just because like you're applying to, I don't know, Harvard, don't talk about Boston as like a city itself. Uh, the the thing is, that's for the city. That's not for the school itself. So just be careful that like just because you can, because generally speaking, if you say like Boston, for example, then why not Boston University? And they want to know why Harvard specifically. Or like if you say East Coast, well, there's a lot of schools in the East Coast, right? So just be careful about not trying to just relate it to the particular location. Uh, there is like some particular way that you might be able to wrap it. Like for example, like you can always say that you want to do like a an internship or like a work-based experience or research experience that relates to that area, and that you know that there's specific programs or opportunities in the area that allows you to access those opportunities. That's an example of a way where you can show a little bit more connection. So being able to show like if you are going to talk about the location, then just make sure that you have something about the college itself that helps you stay connected to that location. Uh, the other things to also consider is if they have a program or curriculum that everyone knows about. For example, at Brown, they're known to have like an open curriculum where you can kind of like choose your courses. Uh, know that that could be a little bit cliche because a lot of students have stated that in the past. And so you don't want to sound like the same as everyone else if that's like the one main thing that everyone always talks about. Don't talk about specific professor because if they leave, then you no longer can really study there. And plus, like if you were to move that professor, then which which faculty would you be able to like work with instead? And superficial reasons about the campus trade. Don't be like at the surface level. Like Columbia, I know Columbia always has like a lot of amazing reps about like the school looking very beautiful, which it really is. But like that's not something why you'd want to just study there just because it looks pretty. All right. Major specific. So The major specific one is a little bit easier to kind of talk about just because you've probably already been exposed to it in some type of shape or form. This again goes back to your activities. What did you learn from your activities that has helped you understand why is it that you want to study in this particular field? And it should be more than just about job security and money, right? You don't want to just say that I want to go down the pre-med because it's the most secure thing or engineering because it's the most secure thing. There has to be a deeper motivation, a purpose, something that brings you to be able to stick all 4 years to be able to learn more about that particular field. And that's why it's really important on a daily basis or weekly basis, depending on where you're at with your college admissions process, is to have more conversations. Why do you want to study this? Just dig it deeper. Why? Why do you want to study engineering? Because I like building things. Okay, why do you like building things? Oh, because I love to see how things have formed together or how gears and things relate to each other. And why is that so important to you? Well, because I like to be productive and I love to be able to see how um, uh, like mechanical things like are able to uh, build very practical and useful things in the world. Like stuff like that. Like you gotta peel off the layers by just asking yourself why all the time. Focus on what got you interested and how you hope to expand your learning at this blank college through whatever like program, whatever curriculum, whatever kind of thing. Like for example, a lot of colleges and departments they might have like a either like a thesis that they have to do or like a graduation requirement for that particular major. That's something that you can identify and say like, hey, by studying at Harvard through their, I don't know, engineering program, I see that there is like a project where we have to build an X, Y, or Z. And I really hope to be able to get into that because that'll help me understand more about how to accomplish this goal that I have after college. And that's an example of a way to be able to show that you're taking advantage of their academic resources and how their resources are very crucial towards your own growth and development. The whole thing, right, is if you were to imagine yourself, here's a different analogy. Think of it as like you're like a puzzle piece, right? There's a whole bunch of puzzle pieces put together. This school is just one of those puzzle pieces. And why is it that this school puzzle piece like fits so well nicely into your kind of application? And why is it so important for your own fundamental growth and development? So you're just being able to try to paint that picture here. Find opportunities at the campus that are different from others. So, for example, whether that's the summer program, internship, faculty lecture series that distinguishes from the particular college. Again, you're just trying to find specific information that they have that can be very helpful. And then tell them that you're studying blank at uh, this particular university will help you get further in your life, like as I mentioned already. All right, let's keep on going. And so, what not to talk about here, right, is the ranking. Uh, no one, no one. The thing about rankings are so arbitrary. Like they really don't matter as much. Like yes, it's cool and all that. Like I went to UC Berkeley, the number one public university and all. But like at the end of the day, like rankings is just like a popularity contest in its own way. Yes, there is reason why it's important to go to a top 5, top 10, top 20 school because of its reputation or brand. But it's why does it have that reputation or brand is what's important. They already know that they are the top school. So what about the school is it that they can offer that you could be able to go into? uh, a recitation of their curriculum. They already know this information. Like, yes, like the thing is, you don't want to teach them about what they know about themselves already. The goal is to show how you are connected to the curriculum. What is it that you can get out of this curriculum? Remember, the focus is on you as an applicant. The focus is not on the school. So that's why I'm talking about in terms of the fine balance. You got to just be careful about not to just talk about the school because you're not just regurgitating what's on the page of a particular website. You're just trying to show to them how do you connect with them. Just randomly putting in college course names or numbers. They already know this as well. Again, it's not just about name dropping stuff. It's about being able to talk about what will you hope to learn and grow from this experience. And then lastly, not to mention like particular professors or people from the school or major. That's not really valuable either. Like just to show that you are knowledgeable about these things, it doesn't really give me more detail about you. What's the difference of me trying to highlight, I don't know, John Doe versus Jane Doe at a school? Does that make a difference at all? Like, let's take it this way. As an admissions officer, would I really actually know who the professor are in my school? Probably not, honestly. Like, as an admissions officer, I don't know what these specific people are at the school, and nor will I care. What I care about is you and why is it that you want to apply to the school. So remember that throughout this whole entire time with the supplemental applications, the kind of takeaway here is focus on yourself, right? Just don't try to focus on trying to educate me about the school itself. All right. So that was a quick overview in terms of the kind of Ivy League admissions here, in terms of being able to demonstrate it. So just as a quick recap, right? We talked a lot about like the academic rigor, right? It's not just about the test scores. It's not about just the grades, but it's about being able to take the right courses because you want to show that you're taking initiative to demonstrate that you can handle the amount of college rigor that's expected at this higher level. Second, remember for personal projects and activities, the goal there is to show that you're taking initiative to learn more about your field and that you don't need to wait till college to begin your interest in your studies. And lastly, for the supplemental apps, really you're just trying to be able to demonstrate your cultural connection to the university. Don't just talk about the university itself, talk about why it makes so much sense, why it is so essential for you to go to this university because it is part of your fundamental growth. Okay. And so if you want this notes and replay and you want this PowerPoint presentation, feel free to text notes and replay to 949-775-0865. And also, if you haven't received our Ivy admissions guide before, this is available to everyone. Just text Ivy guide to the same number there, 949-775-0865, where we kind of detail more about this that I just talked about, and also other useful information about what it takes in order to get into Ivy League schools. Also, for 2026 juniors, if you haven't already registered for the College App Intensive, this is where we will help you get your applications done. So we'll have a workshop at the very beginning of the summer, one at the very end. And the goal is to be able to help you complete your final drafts by the end of the entire summer. And so this will be available, and we have very limited spots left for in-person. So if you plan to join in person, I recommend people to RSVP ASAP because I think a few spots, we only have like 3 or 4, and there's a few sold out already. So take advantage of that. We also have virtual as well. So if you can join us in California, then feel free to join these virtual ones. Also, if you liked this call, you're new to our community, join our free 15-minute assessment call. This is where we'll be able to tell you how to prepare for college. Is a free action plan. Nothing's going to be sold on this call. Our goal is just to be able to give you some free information about how to get started. So whether you're in 7th grade, 8th grade, junior, sophomore, whatever, we'll be able to help you here. Okay. And then also newsletter. If you haven't already, you should definitely register for our newsletter. This is where we give free information on a weekly basis, just generally about, hey, this is our top college admissions learning. It doesn't hurt to just have this in your inbox and just like leave it there and like come back to it when you're ready. We'll share you our tips and secrets about what is it that you could do to increase your college admission chances. And again, these are the kinds of things you could text to our number to get some free resources. And now let's go into the Q&A. Okay. All right. So pulling it up. Okay. If our school allows an optional 7th period, should we be sure to take advantage every year? My son would like to, but it's allowed for certain course combos. Yeah, definitely. So one quick tip that a lot of people don't realize that hurts them: do not take open periods. Don't take teacher aid periods either. Okay. Those tend to be like considered as breaks, right? Those are like chill classes for a lot of like students, and like students really love them just because like they don't have to do any work. Don't take those open periods. Like if you are going to take an open period, then at least supplement dual enrollment as well. So there's an opportunity, and especially for Ivy Leagues, you want to take every single optional period that you can to be able to take an additional course. Okay. Why do colleges want students to complete college courses before entry? Why won't they lose money when those students graduate early? No, not necessarily. I mean, it's one of those things where, again, the goal is to be able to stand out, and the goal is to be able to see which of they want to know who are the cream of the crop of the students, right? Because it's a college's incentive to try to to get the best of the best, because when they go off to do great things, they can always say, oh, this is an alumni that graduated from Harvard or from Yale. And like the thing is, they're looking for people who are exceptional. And exceptional students are those who go far and beyond. And the whole point of these admissions is they're going to be making money every single year on students anyways. It's more so about who are we excited to put our brand name on? Who is it that we want to be able to stamp and say like this is our student that graduated from our school? And so that way they can take credit. I mean, that's their goal at the end of the day. All right. Do you have a sample schedule for everything else? Category student, my kids are strong academically, but their passion is in arts and that's what they like to major in. Yeah, so at least for that sample schedule of everything else, it's just more so of high, generally high academic rigor all around. I know that doesn't sound as useful, but what that means is you don't have to specialize as much as the computer science and engineering students or specialize as much as the STEM and business students. So the goal there, take as many AP courses, take as many honors courses, and take general education courses at the community college. Usually the best thing that's always helpful is just get ahead on math. I think usually math is the number one thing that we always tell our students to get ahead on, just because those are the things that differentiate students. Because if you notice when students enter high school and when it comes to math, they have a lot of different like routes or for example, some students start at geometry, algebra 2, algebra 1. And so math is usually the one that is the main differentiator. All right. Another question here. For community college classes, do competitive colleges consider it better to take general education courses to transfer or subject-specific classes? Asking particularly for engineering, what is a better addition to your application? For engineering, it's always going to be math. That's the main thing to go for. But anything that's transferable. So the thing is, math and especially calculus is always going to be transferable for the most part. General education courses are like secondary to that. So I would go for math first, and then secondary is the general education courses. Do UCs count as CC classes to recalculate GPA? If so, are the CC classes weighted in the recalculation? No. So the thing is, you have two separate transcripts. You have a transcript for high school and a transcript for your community college. You submit both of them separately. So in ways, your GPA is going to be different in this case, right? You have one for your high school GPA, you have one for your community college GPA. And at the end of the day, GPA doesn't really matter as much. It matters about the specific grades in particular classes. So for example, if you are in engineering or computer science, all I care about is your math and physics for the most part. Does everything else matter? Yeah, sure it does, but not as much, okay? So in reality, we look more past than just the GPA number. We look at the specific grades on each course. Do IBs consider your ninth grade? Ninth grade? Yes, they do. Is it accurate that some IBs want senior year first semester grades? Yes, and it depends. Like, as in, like, they might ask you for more additional information. So senior year is never a time to slip up. A lot of students might think that senior year is something that I could take a relaxation in. No, it's totally possible where some students get their admissions rescinded because they didn't do a good job in their senior year. So definitely always try to make sure that the senior year grades are still very strong. Do Ivy Leagues care more about summer programs versus state schools? It's not like a summer program is required more so. It's more about like what did they learn from the experience. Summer programs help tremendously in that just because students don't typically get that exposure about what do they want to do or what are some activities that they can get more involved in. And so yes, it looks good. Is it required? No, not at all. So it's just one of those things of they're looking for those who are into learning. They want to see those who are taking initiative that want to invest in that. How do you balance summer programs versus taking summer CC classes? Think of it this way is how many hours is students actually in a summer program? Like they're not in it all day. Like it's not like they're in it for 8 hours a day. Usually summer programs, they might be in it for like what, 2, 3 hours a day, 4 hours. It's not much. And so generally speaking, if you want to get into Ivy League level, you can handle a summer program and also take a community college course as well. So that's something that I would recommend there. Do schools like Stanford, MIT look at different factors than Ivy? No, it's very similar. Again, generally speaking, all these college systems they generally look at the same kind of information. Okay, and there's more questions here. Do Ivy Leagues care about the number of courses selected in senior year? For example, 6 versus 7. So will it play a huge impact? Like, not necessarily, but they do get to see like what are you enrolled in. So when you do apply, you still get to put down like what are you going to be enrolled in senior year. And so they take everything in comprehensive review. Just to be clear about how admissions works, it's not like, oh, you didn't do this one thing, therefore you're disqualified. So I don't want folks to think like as if like, oh, just because I didn't take that one extra course, like that's going to mess up my chances. The goal here for this particular webinar is to show how do you maximize your best possible chance to get in, right? Because the goal is how do you stand out? And the challenging part on your side as a parent or a student, you don't know what the other students are doing, right? That's the hardest part. Remember, if you are going against your peers, you're going against your rest of your school, if they're doing like the most amazing stuff possible, then that's what your expectation is. And so I can't tell you that like, oh, taking one course less or one course more is going to make a dramatic difference because again, it kind of depends on what is your rest of your peers doing because we see everything in comparison to each other. Do Ivy League see service trips as a paid trips of no value? Service trips as well, it's about what you learn again. It's not like I don't want to say there's no value. The thing about the way that admissions works is that everything is additive, meaning everything you do is still very much helpful. So whether it's a service trip or whether it's like any type of community service that you go somewhere else, it's fine, right? Again, it's about the learning, it's about the insights. It's not about like, did you do the specific thing here? So it's about how you talk about it. Again, if you've been to our other webinars, you'll know that the application is the most important thing, followed by activities, followed by academics. Academics is the least important thing across all three of them. So if you can talk about it very well, then that means that you're good. But if you did something that like you did a service trip and you can't talk about it, you don't know how to talk about it, then that's where it's going to hurt you because you didn't do a good job of relating to it. Whew, okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, going once, going twice. All right. I hope folks had a really amazing time today. And thank you all for participating, and we'll see you all next week. Take care.